Welcome to the RightNOW podcast. My name is Derek Distin, Senior Director of Customer Experience here at Rightworks. You know, accounting traces its roots back well over 7,000 years, and in that time, the idea of accounting and the profession has changed dramatically. I'm deeply humbled you tuned in today, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak to a number of folks across the profession who have thoughts about the continuing evolution. Joining me today is Varun Jain, CEO of Miles Education, an organization that is working relentlessly to address the shortage of skilled accountants. Varun, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
So before we get started, I hear the company name, Miles Education. Can you give me just a brief synopsis of what it is that Miles Education does?
What we're doing very, very specifically, we go to top US universities who have traditional accounting programs. We work with them in converting those traditional accounting programs, specifically the graduate accounting programs, into STEM. So let's say they have a master's in accounting program. We work with them to get this converted to a MS in accounting and analytics program. So what that does is, it sort of makes, accounting more sexy, more glamorous, more attractive to the domestic talent pool, and it sort of allows more candidates to stay in accounting, get on the track, because that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of candidates, a lot of Gen Z especially, trying to move out of accounting because they don't really see the X factor in here. On top of that, the moment we are able to achieve the STEM integration in accounting, we then work with a talent pool, a very large talent pool that we have in India. So in India, Miles has an alumni base of more than 55,000 experienced accountants. We have access to an accounting talent pool of over 1 million candidates, right? So it's a very large talent pool, in India, and many of them have been our students and our alumni in the past. So what we do is we then recruit experienced accountants with a few years of experience, let's say, 3 years to 5 years, sometimes even 10 years of experience, to come into the US. These accountants pursue these MS in accounting and analytics program, which takes, let's say, about 2 semesters, close to a year. And then they are eligible to work in the US for 3 years on their student visa. They don't need any additional visa sponsorship. So that becomes an amazing model for firms to recruit from, an amazing pool, who are going to work in their US office for a few years. And after that time, either they stay on, they get it's an H-1B kind of a work visa, or they come back and they become remote employees, but somebody who's worked in your office for a few years, who understands your culture, who understands you, who understands your clients, right? So this becomes a very, very unique model. And, we've seen a lot of excitement around firms, alliances, and societies who say this is too good to be true. And then we got to go and actually tell them, no, this is too good and true.
Too good and true. Okay, well, let me ask the question then. Do you have any examples of firms who've perhaps helped solve their shortage utilizing Miles?
Derek, we have hundreds of public accounting firms who have recruited from our talent pool. They just love this model. They want a lot more. We're scaling up big time. So to give you a few specific examples, let's say we have one of the firms, which is a Big 10 accounting firm, among the top 10 accounting firms in the country. They've actually recruited more than 50 accountants across 17 offices, and they will really scale it up to a few hundred in the coming years, right? So that's a large firm, recruiting from this pool. Another example is, let's say we have a small, 130 people CPA firm in a place called Baraboo in Wisconsin. I don't know if you've heard of it. And this firm has actually recruited 9 accountants from our talent pool. And again, we have hundreds of case studies and examples like that. We have, let's say, a firm in Fresno in California who've recruited a few accountants. We have a firm in Savannah in Georgia who've recruited a few accountants. So we have, we've gotten into mainstream America. And what we see is, the bigger benefit of the Miles model, is with small mid-tier public accounting firms. Let's say a 100 people firm or a 200 people firm who can't set up their own base in a different country, who who doesn't love outsourcing because they can't set up their own shop and they have to go in through a third party. And there's always a worry about sharing confidential client data, finding the right talent. So there are a lot of concerns around the entire outsourcing model. And they love the Miles STEM pathway, which actually gets them talent in their US office. And we're seeing this scaling to a talent pool of thousands in the years to come.
Okay, so let's take a step back then a little bit from the Miles STEM pathway solution. Let's instead talk about what you mentioned earlier, which is, I think you used the term trying to make the profession sexy or glamorous again. So how can we bring sexy back to the industry? How can we draw more students to an accounting profession?
A lot of onus is on leaders. Is also on the Gen Z and millennials entering into the profession in terms of branding the profession, building the narrative for the profession. Now, in terms of branding and narrative, there are multiple threads that we could use, right? So one thread is, of course, so there was an article in the Washington Post some time back, which read, "The accountant shortage threatens capitalism's future." So essentially, right, we as accountants, we are saving the world. We are actually saving capitalism, right? So if we weren't there, right, things would collapse, right? Perhaps you won't have any Wall Street, if you don't have the accountants, if you don't have the public accounting firms really holding forth there, right? So I would say the job that we do, the larger picture, that is missing in narrative and branding. The second thread is something I've already spoken about, is about STEM in accounting, is about technology in accounting. So when you look at a lot of students today, Gen Z, especially who are in colleges, and they have to take career choices. And they have a lot of choices, but the most attractive ones are technology and sciences, right? And we got to talk about how technology is an integral part of accounting. We've been using it for decades, right? Accounting software, tax software. Of course, the accounting information systems have become way more mature now. We use analytics way more than we did. So we use analytics way more than we used in the past, right? So we are no longer bean counters talking about what happened yesterday, right? As accountants, we are now talking about what will happen tomorrow, right? When we're looking at audit, right, we're not like sitting and picking up a sample, doing the test. We're using audit data analytics to actually test the entire population. Tax softwares have become really smart, right? It's not just about tax return preparation, but they also enable tax planning, in terms of how do you optimize your tax returns? How do you pay less dollars to Uncle Sam, right? So the deal is, right, accounting narrative and branding. I think that is one essential piece, that could go a long way, in branding the profession, in making it more glamorous, because we are glamorous in substance, not in form.
So if I am a concerned principal or partner at an accounting firm, and I'm wondering if the work that I'm trying to do to help brand the profession or solve my own staff shortage, if I'm looking at that, what would be an indicator for me that I'm being successful in helping to either, again, elevate the profession or solve my own skill shortages?
Okay, so from a branding perspective, right, the question is, are you talking to the community? Are you really spreading the word out? Okay, are you on a podcast with RightNOW? So, okay, but the point is, right, there are a lot of ways of doing this. Again, everyone can have their own KPIs, but there's a lot that leaders can do. We need the Steve Jobs, we need the Zuckerberg, we need the Bill Gates, we need the Elon Musk of accounting, right? So I think the seats are all empty, and it's about if you're a principal or a partner, can you step up and take that seat? Can you get there? Can you start talking to, let's say, students in universities, maybe even in high school? Can you talk to the community at large, in terms of where you see accounting? Can you be a role model? And again, these are not questions easily answered, but I think, every individual, every leader, if they start thinking about this, number one, they're going to solve the world's problems. And number two, they're going to build a brand for themselves, right? And personal branding really matters, right? So that's one piece. The second is, in terms of the talent optimization, right? So, with the talent shortage, let's talk about what are the solutions that you really have for the talent shortage. One of the solutions is you can't find enough talent in the United States, outsource the jobs, right? Send them to another country. Let's say send them to India or to Philippines or anywhere in the world, right? So that's one solution. Now, it does work in for the larger firms because they sort of set up their own base, own offshore centers. Again, it's a mixed response, but for a few of them, it does work. But it doesn't really for a lot of smaller firms, mid-tier firms who have, let's say, 100 people firm, and they don't really have the scale to set up their own base. They go through third parties, and that's often questionable in terms of quality of talent, in terms of confidential client data. So it's tricky, it's complicated, but again, it is one of the solutions. The second solution, of course, is partner with Minds, right? So because we're the only ones who are getting an international talent who's doing a graduate program in accounting, who's available to work for 3 years, and after 3 years could become a remote employee, multiple options. The third, and I think a pretty important one, is leveraging technology, right? Would you need the same size audit team or the same size tax team or the same size, let's say, client accounting services team, that you had earlier? Could you optimize using technology? And I think that's a very interesting KPI. And sometimes you may not actually reduce your team size, but you reduce the extra hours that your team is putting in, which oftentimes is leading to burnouts and and creating that vicious circle which aggravates the accountant shortage. So I would say multiple solution, multiple fronts, and each solution would have its own KPIs.
I love the fact that you have gone from elevating the profession to saving capitalism to, as you mentioned, saving the world. I mean, it's no small mission that you've got in front of you here, Varun. Gazing into the crystal ball and thinking about the profession here in the United States in the next 2 years, was just limited to 24 months. What do you see as a couple of big changes, or perhaps the biggest change coming down the pipeline?
So number one is what I've already been speaking about, Derek. It's about technology. It's about AI, analytics, automation, right? Cybersecurity, blockchain, right? So all the emerging technologies, I think, they're already well integrated into accounting, but the integration is only getting deeper. So I see that as a very, very interesting trend. The second, this is around ESG and sustainability, right? So ESG reporting is a more holistic way, of talking about how a firm creates value, right? How a firm is responsible. And it goes way beyond just the financial reporting, that we are legally required to do today, as accountants. And I think this is going to be a very, very interesting trend, the next couple of years and beyond.
And certainly ESG fits in with the model of trying to help save the world.
Again, absolutely. Save the environment, save the society, and making sure you're acting responsibly.
Okay, I want you to imagine that you and I are going to step into a time machine here. And let's forget all the science fiction or science fact, who knows, paradoxes, problems that exist with time travel. I want you to just imagine we're going to go back in time 10 years. We're going to open the door of our time machine, and you're going to be standing face to face with yourself 10 years ago. So a 10-year younger Varun. You have 30 seconds to give yourself one piece of advice. What one piece of advice would you tell yourself 10 years younger?
I'd say, dude, just think outside the box. You got to innovate, right? So just to give you a context, Derek, we started working on the STEM in accounting a few years back, and we've really made this a very, very scalable model today. Had we done this a few years back, perhaps, we won't even have a talent shortage. So, if I were to go back and if you really have the machine, I'd say, let's both jump in and the world would be a better place.
If I really had the machine, I'd have made some investments 10 years ago that may have precipitated my need to host podcasts. Okay, so before we get back into the machine, I just want to point out that had you done that 10 years ago, you'd have already solved one of the big problems that you had, which have been solving the talent shortage. So that's part of the way towards solving the world's problems. Good job, Varun. Now we get back in the machine and we travel from that point 20 years into the future, which for you and I is 10 years from now. Same thing. The door is going to open up. You're going to be standing face to face with yourself 10 years from now. So 10 years older. 30 seconds. What one question will you ask of the older you?
Have you put in your 100%? Have you stayed true to your core values? Because the world's changing, right? And it's not always that the results are in our hands, right? But what's in our hand, what we need to do is, put in our 100%, put in our efforts. In India, we call it karma, right? So you gotta really put in all you've got, and don't really expect results. You may succeed, you may fail, and that's fine. But I would say that's the value system that I would question. But I think this is very, very interesting, Travis.
That's a great question. Did I give 100%? It's a question we should ask ourselves every day, perhaps of even just the day before, but that's an amazing thought, Varun. Thank you for that. So as we wrap up, Varun, I do have to admit, I did a little bit of snooping on your LinkedIn page, and I saw a great quote there from Lao Tzu. May have been Confucius. I don't exactly know who to attribute it to, but it was, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And I just want to remind everybody that the best time to take that single step is right now. Join us in Austin, Texas, May 14th through the 16th for RightNOW, the premier event for the accounting professional. You can find more information at rightworks.com/rightnow. Keep practicing, keep evolving, keep doing exactly what Varun said and thinking outside the box. Thank you, Varun, so much for your time today.
Thank you, Derek, for having me. This was a real interesting conversation. And if you really get to the time machine, let me know.
You'll be the first person I call up.
Looking forward.